Hi guys, I am going to briefly cover Michelle Trachtenberg's death. For those of you that don't know whom she is, you're seeing her here on screen, like a before and after. So obviously, it's like comparing day to night or night to day. She was a relatively speaking popular actress, especially in the early 2000s when she was at the peak of her career. I mean, most people, I think, are familiar with her, but if you're not familiar with her, remember series such as Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and in the end, Gossip Girl, hypothetically speaking, near the end or in the end, whatever. Remember the movie Euro Trip. In any case, I think more than a few people remember Michelle. She was, I think, one of those Disney stars or something, even if she wasn't literally from that class, if you will, from that category, or if you want to label her within that category. In any case, this is her. This is what she looked like when she was at the peak of her career, and this is right before she died. She died a couple of weeks ago, and at the end of February. Um, and we're going to read briefly the thingy surrounding her death, the circumstances. In early 2024, Trachtenberg addressed concerns on social media regarding her health after some people commented on her apparent weight loss and signs of jaundice. She reassured her followers that she was happy and healthy and she underwent a liver transplant at some time, quote unquote, recently prior to her death. Blah, blah, blah. Mother found her unresponsive on February the 26th. She was 39 years old and they were unable to rule the cause and manner of death, and it just goes on like that. I'll leave the Wikipedia entry in the description of this video. Anyways, guys. So yeah, just an FYI. I also remember the fact that she was born in the same year as me, 1985, but I am older than her by a couple of weeks. I was born in September the 29th, and she was born on when was it again? She was born on October the 11th. So again, I'm like 2 weeks older than her approximately. And it just goes on like that. Now, we're simply through a chart going to view the circumstances regarding her death, or better said, the cause, the COD, abbreviated. What's the cause of death for Michelle Trachtenberg? So yeah, this is the chart, the usual information. This is an orderly chart, but interesting because it has a death specifically involved. I don't know if I've ever done one of these charts. If so, I have, or shared with the public, better said. If so, if not, then yeah, this is the first one. If so, then yeah, there are very few of them. So yeah, today, March the 15th, 11:23 a.m., my location, and so on and so forth. Now, Michelle is represented by Saturn, unsurprisingly, because it stands for death. And Saturn is the planet of death. And Saturn is in Pisces, conjunct the Sun, conjunct Neptune, sextile the part of fortune, sextile Uranus in Taurus, the part of fortune is in Capricorn, also sextile her ascendant. Again, the lower half of the chart is me, so I'm represented by the moon, but you shouldn't pay attention to me. Obviously, this is about her. So you need to essentially flip the chart first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth house for her. The fifth and the sixth house represent health. The fifth house represents overall health, so the house that Uranus is in, and her sixth chart that Jupiter is in represents physical health specifically, and or in particular. So yeah, as I was saying, sextile Uranus. Sextile, the Power of Fortune, and it just goes on like that, and that's pretty much it. There is a trine with Mars here in Cancer, but considering the fact and insight tells me that, considering the fact that it's outside her section of the chart, as well as just my insight, it tell me that it's a square in actuality. So I repeat, this is not a trine, this is a square. So yeah, anyways, everything you see here, the conjunction with the Sun and Neptune, and the opposition with the Earth, it stands for the fact that she was indeed in bad health, and she used something akin to New Age healing. Let's just say alternative forms of medicine. Those are the things she tried in order to get her health back on track. I want to say that it was like borderline, a form of desperation, and it was, but in a manner of speaking. Um, for those that of you that don't know exactly what I mean by esoteric forms of alternative healing, think holistic. Again, if you don't know what holistic is, simply Google it. Holistic forms of medicine are simply forms of medicine that don't literally have a root or their roots in in conventional medicine, but rather esotericism, but new age esotericism, not heavy-handed occultism and or heavy merit-based esotericism like what I do, obviously, but more experimental forms of of medicine, aromatherapy, you name it, stuff like that, essential oils, things that are questionable to say the least, depending, some of it can work for whatever reason, others the exact opposite, doesn't do squat, it might even make things worse, you name it. In any case, that's what she tried, that's what the sun and Neptune mean. The fact that it's conjunct Neptune stands for the fact, and the sun as well, stands for the fact that it had a positive effect on her, but the effect was more mental. It was like a placebo effect. It put her in a better mood, all the while not doing anything for her, literally, physically, health-wise. That's what the Earth says. That's why it's opposed the Earth, and the Earth is in Virgo. Virgo stands for physical health, and the Earth stands for what she desired the most, which was to be physically healthy again, essentially to be in her prime. The sextile with Uranus in her fifth house in Taurus stands for the fact that she did indeed go under the knife and or, she was indeed subject to some form of some form of surgical or medicinal application or procedure to improve her health. Something of a serious nature and something that wasn't necessarily super expensive, but something that still cost. Something that just cost a fair amount of money, to put it that way, or just plain an amount of money. Uh, Absolute worst case scenario. If not, then it's something similar, something along those lines. But yes, more the former than the latter. The sextile with the pot of fortune stands for the fact that she enjoyed from a neutral perspective, successful acting career. But the fact that the pot of fortune is in Capricorn stands for the fact that that career had, run its course in its trajectory and had come to an end, plain and simply put. Pallas here, that's why Pluto is also next to it. Pallas here, despite the fact that it's not aspected to Saturn, so to her, it gives it, even the planets that aren't aspected give general insight as to what life looked like for her. On occasion, she made like minor appearances compared to her overall career for the sake of earning an income. That's why Pallas is in her second house. Um, the ninth house is neutral, like nothing mentioned worthy there. Um, and midheaven is ruled by Pisces, and it is conjunct Ceres in the same zodiac sign. Simply stands for what I said earlier. Like she really tried the aromatherapy, the holistic healing, the alternative forms of medicine that have like esoteric undertones for again those same reasons I mentioned earlier. You got Venus there at its weakest in Aries. It simply stands for her physical appearance and overall charm and appeal, which from the picture, as you could tell, was not good whatsoever. The retrograde arguably or speculatively applies, but it says the same thing. So yeah. Mercury in Aries, going stationary. The same thing I said about the retrograde with Venus applied to the same thing applies to the stationary that Mercury is in. Stationary simply means just that stationary. The planet is like is just stopped, so to speak. It stopped moving. Now, Mercury and Aries means the same thing as Venus, but specifically her mentality. It stands for the fact, and that's why they're conjunct one another. Stands for the fact that they're not that she doesn't, she does not like. She did not like bluntly put looking like shit. No offense to her, and she would almost borderline act aggressively if someone said, "Hey, you don't look too good." She would like borderline desperately try to defend herself. But again, any woman in her position would honestly like I understand. Um, for a woman, one of the biggest, most painful things is seeing you look like shit for whatever reason, as in you were once pretty, beautiful, and yeah, and then things go downhill. The fifth house, her fifth house is also ruled by thingy, Aries, and this specific degree stands for difficulties. And like I said, her fifth house stands for overall health. So yeah, things were not going well. She was having a really rough time. Um, and Chiron doesn't really say anything mention worthy, so I'm not going to say make any statements about that. Jupiter is in Gemini, conjunct her sixth house, also in the same zodiac sign. Simply stands for, again, on a day-to-day basis, she had considerable difficulty because Jupiter is afflicted. It's one of the weakest signs it could be in. Um, Considering the fact that it rules Sagittarius and it's in its opposite sign, so Gemini. Stands for the fact that again, she suffered a lot with mental health. I mean, with physical health. Um, on a day-to-day basis, she had difficulty coping with all the aforementioned, and she was simply looking for a way to remedy that. And last but not least, that square that I brought up with Mars in Cancer stands for the fact that she, other than the holistic and the alternative forms of medicine, she also did something. She ingested and or similar something that contributed considerably to her death, to her demise. I don't want to say untimely because, the pot of fortune here and Pluto here in her house, her first house, indicate that, it doesn't matter. Regardless of the who, the what, the what, the why, the how, her time had simply come. It's time to go. Time to leave the material plane. In any case, again, that's why Mars is in Cancer, and Mars obviously does not function well in Cancer. And Saturn and Mars are planets that deal with death the most by default. Saturn, Mars, and Pluto, and all of them are considerably involved in her chart. Saturn is the OG one. Mars stands for, if applicable to death, how you'll die, and that can be potentially violent or unpleasant. And Pluto simply deals with kicking the bucket, but in more of a way that attracts the attention of people. Anyways, like I said, or as I was saying, the thing with Cancer, how do I put this? Like I said, she ingested or she took something in other than the aromatherapy based stuff I mentioned earlier. She tried, in a hypothetically speaking, desperate attempt to look good again. In a manner of speaking, desperate attempt, obviously. She She took something. It's hard to tell. Again, cancer stands for again anything that you in this context that you eat or something, So it was something like that. Okay, it didn't have to necessarily be medicine of some sort. It could have been drugs as well. Honestly, some form of drugs some wonder drug or something that she hoped would do the aforementioned. If not, then it is something else. It could have been, bottom line is that whatever it was, it it was something that was of an experimental nature, as in, it doesn't matter whether it was tea or some unknown kind of food, and she heard that, hey, if I eat this, it's reportedly going to make me look 5 years younger, etc., etc. You can see how dangerous something like that is. That's why it's, Mars. In any case, it contributed whatever she ingested. It contributed considerably to her death. And there you go. That's how she died. All the circumstances surrounding her death and whatnot. Later.